Ladies and gentlemen, here at 405, we've got Kevin Sikkink here. He's going to be talking about Farming CBD 101, a guide to your first growing season. We've got a couple announcements here. Visit our half-day CBD at booth 7002. They've got some consumer specials. They've got $25 gummy packs. They're 25 milligrams of CBD per gummy. There's 30 of them in there, and normally they're $34.99, and they've got 60% off of their oil. They also have an additional 10% discount on wholesale orders of 24 units or more. 60% discount off of the MSRP. Please visit Boomy Booth at 3058 for consumer special free chocolate. You get a sample pack for stopping by the booth. Why not? Who doesn't love chocolate? And you also get 10% off as wholesale orders placed at the show. So we've got Kevin. He's here as a fifth-generation farmer in Minnesota. He has been involved in the industry since 2010, and he has been to cannabis farms all across the country. Please do come on up, Kevin.
Thank you. Like you said, I'm Kevin Sikkink. Thank you. I'm from Minnesota. We just finished up our third year growing hemp. So I'll just get right into it. Has anyone grown CBD before? Is anyone looking to learn because they're going to plan on growing this next year? Okay, nice. I probably could spend 20 minutes on every category. So it's a lot of information to just unpack in 20 minutes. So I'm just going to kind of roll through it. But you guys are welcome to follow up with questions or anything like that. All right. What this guide will cover: getting your license, finding your genetics, field and plant preparation, planting S&T. S&T is strategy and tactics. Strategy is your plan. What are you going to do? Tactics are the very specific things you're going to do to achieve that plan. Strategy and tactics are important. You got to learn those things. Watering S&T, state testing, harvest S&T, and post-harvest strategy and tactics. First thing, getting your license, learning your state laws. Before you know what you're going to do, you better know what you can do. You're going to grow 15 acres, you're going to get a new truck, but Mississippi only is going to let you grow 50 plants. You got to know your state laws. The earlier you apply, the better it's going to be. Each state can process an application relatively smooth, but the federal government does a BCA on everybody, and that takes time. And the longer you take, you're on the 50 states waiting list, not Illinois' waiting list. So apply early. And start outlining your plan. But I beg you, do not buy anything. You can buy your seeds, maybe put a deposit on your genetics, but do not buy the greenhouse. Do not buy the pots. Don't buy the lights. Don't buy anything until you have that state license. Don't buy the carriage before you even have a horse. Finding your genetics. Are you going to grow seed or are you going to grow clone? Are you going to grow indoor, outdoor, greenhouse? Are you going to grow for biomass or for flower? You need to know all of these questions before you can buy your genetics. People would think, all right, I'm going to do seed, I'm going to do outdoor. And the reality is that you would actually do seed in a greenhouse so you can manage your males and you can manage that time it takes for a seed to grow. If you just put a seed out in the field, it's not like corn. These have not been genetically modified to come out of the ground 14 days on the nose. They're very fickle plants. Weather's hard on them, animals are hard on them, and it's just hard for them to get going. So just know your stuff. Field, planting, and prep. The first one should be the second one and should be the third one. Test your soil. I can't emphasize this enough. Test your soil. You don't even know if your plants are going to grow if you don't test your soil. You could give them a whole thing of nutrients you saw on Instagram, but if the test of the soil comes back different than what that Floraflex is, you're going to burn your plants, you're going to kill your plants. So test your soil, I beg you. The second thing, also very important, is your plant spacing. How wide are your rows, whether it's in a greenhouse or outdoors? How many plants in each row? What are you going to be watering with? Are you driving four-wheelers in there? Are you driving tractors in there? You're going to want to know your spacing before you start growing. I know it seems simple, but I'm telling you, people end up growing and then they end up buying equipment so they can farm their rows instead of just growing their rows for the equipment they have. If your plan is to buy a seeder and run it through a field, you need a new plan. I've been in the industry a long time. I've met a lot of farmers, and I kind of have this pessimistic vibe is because there's a bunch of cautionary tales, and one of them is planting with a seeder. I have yet to meet one farmer that said, yeah, I did great planting with a planter. They always have issues. If your plan is to have a planting party, you're going to need more than one party, and you're probably going to need new friends because it's a lot of work, and you don't want to alienate your friends. Strategies: planting seeds, transplanting clones or seedlings, and then planting full-grown plants. Those are our strategies. The tactics: seed with a planter. I touched on it, I'm not a big fan, but people do it. It's a thing that they do. Seed planting by digging a trench. This can also be done with transplants or clones or seedlings. That is as simple as walking down with a hoe. It's as simple as one guy driving a four-wheeler, another guy sitting in the back of a trailer, and that guy in the back of the trailer is just holding a hoe. It doesn't have to be overcomplicated. Keep it simple, be smart, be efficient, be cost-effective. Most farms in the CBD industry start a seedling or a clone indoors in the spring, like March, April, May, and then they transplant them outside. This gives you a higher level of success. You're planting a more established plant. Now, planting those transplants you can do by buying an auger that goes on a drill and just drilling down. It can be by digging a hole. We use a transplanter. My mom's, so we'll take clones and then the leftover moms are in 3-gallon bags. It's literally as simple as having a bobcat and digging a hole down the line, putting them in, filling them in. It's not overcomplicated, but just remember to just be conscious of the amount of work you're putting in and labor. And I can't stress this even, the number one thing I would say to growing CBD overall is do not plant what you can grow. You have to plant what you can harvest. That is so crucial. I could tell you 3 farms right now that have fields of unharvested CBD. Not because it was bad CBD, they either ran out of the manpower or the will to harvest so many plants in such a short time, or they just ran out of dry space. They didn't plan out the dry space when they planted, and now they spent half the labor, half the money, everything just out there in the field to waste. So just know it's what you can harvest. A lot of people just buy clones. We've learned in our business that actually is a good side business. We also plant clones. So some people just buy clones and then we show up, plant them, and then they go on their way. So that's another thing too. You can always look locally and find someone that just does it and have them do it for you. I touched on the established plants. You just dig a hole and you put the plant in the hole. Pretty straightforward. Watering strategy and tactics. There's 4 of them. Mother Nature, a sprinkler, I forgot my hand water, and my drip line. Mother Nature, the easiest, requires almost no tactics. The only tactic I would recommend is if you're gonna plant and be by Mother Nature, you better have rain where you're growing. And you better choose something that is low-lying or has a high water table, because these plants need 1.5 inches of rain a week, and even more in the winter, or I'm sorry, in the season of fall where they're starting to flower. They're gonna eat up the water. Hand watering. That picture is probably the worst picture for hand watering. It sounds daunting, but it's actually one of the best ways you can go. If you planned your spacing correct, you can get a sprinkler with a hose and just drive and have someone water as you drive. A four-wheeler, same thing. Put a pump in a 55-gallon bucket with a generator and just pull it and water it. It's really easy and efficient. I know it's not revolutionary, but it works. Sprinkler, you set them up, cover your radius. Only downside of a sprinkler is it's gonna cover everything, the weeds, it all. You're not gonna get focus at the base of the plant, and it uses a lot of water. But if you're in a pinch where you're normally in a rainy season and it's really dry, it might be one of your only options, other than hand watering. And the drip line, the creme de la creme. People love the drip line, it works well. You can go right to the plant. Downsides to the drip line are obviously the cost and the labor of laying them, and people really underestimate how much work it is to pull them out. I use drip line in my 3rd year. The rain in Minnesota is it's getting inconsistent in August and in the fall, so the drip line worked really well for me. I did not do the mulch plastic. I'm not a fan of plastic in the field. We're a farm that we grow cattle and raise cattle and grow corn, and we've never used those type of things. So just a regular drip line worked for us. In the fall, you're gonna have to pull that up in between big plants. It's kind of a hard thing to do. State testing, these are your 3 numbers right here. 30 days, 0.3, and your CBD THC ratio. That CBD THC ratio, you have to understand. That is the ratio of CBD to THC. So if it's 32 to 1, that means your CBD should test at 10%, and then if the ratio is correct, that means your total THC will be at 0.32. So if you're buying these great genetics, Cat's Meow, and the genetics are 22 to 1, and you're not in a state that lets you grow marijuana, you're in trouble. So you want to make sure your genetics are right, make sure your THC levels are right. If you grow like a Cat's Meow that I mentioned, the 22 to 1, you're going to be growing for biomass, you know, because that if you grow for flower, that's going to test hot, that's going to test over the limit. So just be conscious of your THC levels. 30 days, that's what most states do their state testing. So plan that. If you're growing in October, harvesting in October 2nd, make sure you get that state test out there so your levels aren't too high. And then the 0.3, I think we covered. Harvest strategies and tactics. Harvest for biomass and for flower works the same. Find more dry space than you think you need, and then when you have that number, go out and get twice as much, because you don't have any idea how much space these plants take up in that very beginning. Most farms hang like tobacco, so they'll hang it up on a line. Avoid using the dryers. Dryers are a thing where a lot of people just overgrew. They are stressed, they don't have room, so they throw it in a dryer. The dryers kill all those cannabinoids. You're not going to get really good distillate out of that or any kind of fine product. Your quality just goes so down where the market does not support that. When you're harvesting, whether it be for flower or for biomass, whatever it is, have some kind of system in the field so when you come out of the field, it's going to go smooth. So let's say you're going down the rows and whether you're using a saw, a chainsaw, you guys got some invention to take down plants that no one knows about, whatever it is, when you're taking them out the field, leave the stems out and leave them organized in rows. So then when you go into your drying space, the guy can just grab stems and hang. That's important. Those little tiny things are hours and man labor that you can't get back. And that goes to the final thing. Work together. It's a team thing. You might think you're the chef, you might think you're the top boss, but you need everyone on the same page to get harvested. If you're harvesting, that's your focus for today. Get the plants out of the field. Don't do all the extra stuff and start, trimming them and stuff. No, today's harvest day. Get them out of the field. And then harvest will come the second day. Harvesting for flower. I really try to push people not to grow outdoor flower. First of all, it's a gamble. You don't even know if the fall is going to work with you, so you can harvest. It might freeze September 15th, you're done. And to another point, everyone has outdoor flower. Even as biomass, it's flower. We just chose not to trim it. So understand that. And now people are doing the greenhouse and the indoor. People that smoke flower, they don't smoke this kind of flower. They smoke the other kind of flower. And if they are smoking CBD flower, they don't want our outdoor stuff. For the same price, they can get the indoor or the greenhouse. So I really just try to push people away from the outdoor flower. But the people that do, they cut their tops about 7 days, 10 days before the harvest, and then they will let those lowers kind of regrow and retake them. Some farmers will debud right off the stem. They'll take the stem and debud them, and then they'll put them on racks and dry them. Other people hang dry like tobacco, and then they do the bucking, and then they'll run through a dry trimmer or the hand trim. Just overall, harvesting is like 20 times harder than planting. So if you're in June, you're like, man, this is tough. Harvesting is like a whole other beast, and the weather is usually not as pretty. Post-harvest for biomass. You can sell biomass, but the buyers are very limited and the price is almost nothing. Last year, some guy offered 25 cents a pound for biomass. I've heard $1. It's low, it's low. They can buy crude oil and other things. A lot of processors will offer a toll, so you'll pay to get processed. They'll do a split, so you get like 50% goes to the processor, 50% goes to you. Or the third, if you're lucky, we'll just buy the biomass, but that market's pretty much gone. The market for distillate is much stronger than crude oil. Crude oil is about $150 a barrel. Where distillate, if you're the farmer and you can track where it was gone, we've sold liters for $1,200. So if you want to be in that distillate over crude. Making finished products is an option. There's a little more output, but you already have the product. You're from farm to the finish. No one can beat you on price as far as finished products because you grew it. You got it from the source. You are the source. The second one, I talk to a lot of growers and I always tell them right away. The first year you grow, the second year you process and sell. So what I mean by that is don't expect to make money the first year. Just expect to grow successfully the first year. The next year, you can focus on making your products and actually starting to make some money. Post-harvest for flower, obviously just like cannabis, the market is soft in the fall and better, highest in the summer. Highest, with a grain of salt, flower market is so low considering what it used to be in compared to cannabis. It's the easiest option for the farmer to do, but it's the most saturated, so you're gonna have a lot of competition. I mean, you can see that just even here in this building. Make sure your flower is properly curing in jars. You know, you little burp them, get a little air in them, and that'll help the trichlomes fully develop. And that's how you'll get that good, strong, hard cola. People like varieties. So if you grow for flower, make sure you're growing your varieties. And then when you harvest your varieties, keep them separate. And then you get COAs for each variety. And now you have legitimate strands that people can buy and is legit. And on another note, if you grow flower, you want to be federally compliant at the 0.3 in order to ship out of the state. So let's say you're Wisconsin and they have a Delta 9 rule of 1%, so you can grow a little higher cannabis or CBD. You can't ship that overseas. The moment, or overstate, the moment it leaves the state, you are now under the federal law, and the federal law is 0.3. So if you grow this great CBD in Wisconsin, you can't necessarily ship it anywhere because everywhere else is 0.3. My final points: start early, find out where you're gonna grow, your genetics, and get your license. That's a good start. Stick to the plan, strategies and tactics. What is your plan and what are you doing to achieve that plan? I think I touched on a lot. I only have a couple minutes and I want to answer a couple questions. So that's pretty much it. Thank you. Do you guys have any questions? None? Well, the last speech was a lot of questions. Well, thank you guys for coming by. I hope it was at least informative. That's a lot of information. Go ahead. A book. I'm gonna make a video of this, and I'll release that. I can email that to people, and then over the winter, I want to make a video series of each of those categories to like actually make a 30-minute video on each thing. I mean, I could talk for 20 minutes on cloning, you know. So I'll make those, and you can stop by my booth, and I can email that to you. I'm booth 4060, and I can email this PowerPoint to anybody here if they want it as just a reference to have the literature, you know. That's not an issue. Be resourceful, ask, get on the phone, call people, learn what you can from other people. You guys did a great step by just coming here and just taking all this in. You know, take it all in, figure out what all these people are charging for all the products, figure out, you know, are these people third-party people? Read their little QR codes, scan them, make sure the products that they're selling is actually stuff you could grow. You'll notice a lot of people will have flour and they'll spray distillate on it to get their numbers up. You know, so there's a lot of gimmicks in those things. And as a farmer, you don't get to do those gimmicks where, you know, you have to be compliant. So just be aware of those things. Our third year is finally our first year out of the black, or out of the red, and now we're starting to make money. But it just takes patience, and don't just throw a bunch of money at it. It's okay to grow 100 plants instead of 1,000. And a lot of people, they get more out of it. All right, guys, thank you.